Hello everyone and welcome to the second practice session here of the INDYCAR weekend. The session is underway. We're about to join our commentators for this one. It was Joseph Newgarden who was fastest yesterday. Let's see if he's going to be able to continue his form today. Let's join INDYCAR Radio to take you through this second practice session.
Is at the top, and it makes it even harder because the owner of our series is the same owner of that team. But it's going to go away. I mean, it's going to get fixed. It's going to get righted. Don't know. Obviously, it's not over yet. There's still things to come. But right now, all they could do is just put their head down and do business as usual. They won a lot of races, and he's not. They're not in front on accident.
Mother Nature has rolled out the welcome mat, if you will, and has provided what we think is going to be a beautiful weekend here. Let's get more specifics on that. Head to pit road and check it with Michael Young.
One of the maybe few certainties that we know about this weekend, and that is the weather forecast thus far. A beautiful day yesterday and almost picture perfect again today. A little bit cooler than we started out yesterday. We were in the 80s most of the day. It's still 76 ambient temperature. Track a little bit cooler as well. It was up in the 120s yesterday. We're starting this practice session with the track temperature at 108 as we look up and down pit lane. Joseph Newgarden, who was quick yesterday, he still sits on pit lane. Scott Dixon, last weekend's winner, he's also on pit lane as well, but both of those drivers quick thus far. This first practice session again underway at beautiful conditions, partly cloudy skies, but the sun just started to peek out, Mark Janes, and we will take all the sunshine we can get here in Birmingham, Alabama.
Thank you, Michael. Look forward to your call throughout the course of this day, and you keeping us posted on what's going on. An incident in turn 2.
Looks like Lundgaard.
Looks like maybe Christian Lundgaard is slid off the gravel, across the gravel area, and maybe just shy of the Armco.
Yeah, it looks like he was fortunate enough not to get into the Armco, went across the gravel. We've seen a lot of cars yesterday just over driving in turn 2. Grip's kind of low there, just kind of naturally, and he's taking the steering wheel off and getting out of that car.
That's Fittipaldi. Sorry. That's
yeah, it is. You're
yeah.
Sure right. The cars do look alike. Our mistake. That was Fittipaldi. Must have got into that guardrail and bounced off of it maybe, because usually they could just tow you out of that area back on track, but must have had some contact.
Pietro Fittipaldi returning to the series after some time away, Davey. He was 20th quick yesterday, and I'm sure that it's a learning process for him and continues to be, even though he is a motorsports veteran. This is a lot to gather in, but he's got two really good teammates in Graham Rahal, Christian Lundgaard, to help him get back up to speed.
I haven't been able to go talk to him much, and I need to do that, just kind of, get to know him a little bit, but, he's been in all kinds of race cars, obviously. He's not a rookie by any stretch to motorsports. He can get the job done, but just seems like going to these new tracks for the first time, being in this new situation with the team, just a lot of new things happening, and just, not having the luck that he wanted, or not coming off, like he wanted to start off in the season.
Good news is, with a wider window here to get this 45 minutes in, the clock has stopped, and so once they get that car extricated, get it back to pit road, they'll have the full complement of 42 minutes and change left.
Yeah, that's one great thing that IndyCar Series does. They guarantee you X amount of track time. We see some cars, including Lundgaard and Dixon and a few of the cars just sitting on pit lane, kind of waiting, and haven't even got on track yet. Matter of fact, only 21 of the 27 cars have made it a lap.
So Rosenquist, Ferrucci, Palou, Porcher, Power, Rahal, Kirkwood, Erickson, Colton Herta, and Christian Lundgaard, your top 10. A lot of race sims here, or will some maybe see, just because there's not a big difference in the wear, doesn't seem to be, will anyone do potential qualifying sims on these primaries?
I really think that a situation is you got to run the qualifying sims yesterday and instead of today. I've always wondered why they do it yesterday, not today, but that's over my pay grade right now. I guess I can find out, but it seems like they'd put the alternates on before qualifying, and that's today. But they have to worry about qualifying right now, because this track is so difficult to pass on. That track position means everything. The farther you start towards the front of this event, the better chance you have to win this event. So right now, most of these teams are really going to concentrate on getting a good balance and do what they need to do to try to get a strong qualifying run for tomorrow's race.
We heard excerpts from Joseph Newgarden's press conference yesterday. Wanted to get the thoughts and impressions of others involved in his race team. Will Power and Scott McLaughlin also penalized after the event at St. Pete. Davey, you're getting a chance to look at the replay.
Yeah, watching the replay, and just like he didn't really even get into the corner of turn 2 when the car went straight, locked the brakes up. It bounced around a little bit, but there was no contact with the barrier, so these cars are pretty darn strong. It doesn't look like a lot of damage. Could be some underwing damage. A little surprised they didn't just try to pull him out of there, get him back on track and back to pit lane. But he did jump out of the car, so maybe something happened to cause the incident. I'm not sure.
We talked with both Scott McLaughlin and Will Power prior to the session yesterday, and here's what Will Power had to say about the events of this past week.
Oh man, I'm focused as ever on trying to get a win. It's been so long, so it's close at Long Beach. Unfortunately, we had a yellow that felt like exactly at the wrong spot, but made the most of that race. I was happy with P6 and love this track. I want to make that fast 6, have a shot at pole, and try to win the race.
Has this been a good place for you over the years? That you felt like you can come and run up front every week?
Yeah, I love the place. Love it. Great venue, cool track, insanely competitive as it always is in this series. So every 100th counts. You got to do your work. But I'm loving it, man. I love it more than ever at the moment.
Just happy to be back in the race car and focus on the task at hand, and that's Will Power. And I think that, again, Davey, once upon a time, it wasn't that long ago that these drivers talked about, they were happy to get into the round of 12, and now they know how ultra-competitive things are, and it's not enough anymore to get into that round of 12. You want to get in that fast 6.
Fast 6, well, and what Will Power talked about in Long Beach, Rosenquist and his times were almost identical to sit on the pole. The front row was almost, I think, the closest for years they're ever on a front row on a street course. So that tells you how competitive it is. And Will, he's got a lot of passion. He still wants to win races. He still has a pole record that he wants to continue to increase. He has a lot left in his career that he wants to do in INDYCAR, and he tried not to let this last week slow him down.
It was indeed the fastest front row since this knockout qualifying in Firestone Fast 6 format.
Yeah, pretty impressive.
Yeah, for sure. So speaking of Felix Rosenquist, we mentioned he's quick out of the gate, but most of these drivers have only turned a couple of laps. So, Davey, the challenges here. We always say there's one spot in particular where you have to be really, really good. In your opinion, where is that here?
Well, I think the biggest challenge on this course, this track, it is difficult. There's so many blind corners, almost every one. But I really think to find good speed is getting down through 12, 13, 14, 15 in that area. I think that's just such high commitment area. It loads the car, then you go over a rise. And I just think for speed, just pure speed, that to be towards the front of this field, you have to be really good at that end of the racetrack.
Alex Wolf is on pit road with us throughout the course of the rest of this weekend. Welcome, Alex, and give us an update on Pietro Fittipaldi.
Well, thank you very much, Mark. Great to be with you here this weekend at Barbara Motorsports Park. And Davey Hamilton had a chance to look at that replay on Pietro Fittipaldi, the number 30 machine for Ray Hall Letterman Lanigan Racing. A little bit of a mystery as he looked at that replay and seeing the same replays, that 30 crew in their pit stand. And they still have the same sort of a mystery that Davey does. I asked if Pietro said what happened, and they said they're not sure yet. And they are packing some things up and heading back towards the paddock area. And in fact, Pietro Fittipaldi come back to the pit, and we'll see if we can get a word with him momentarily.
And the green flag flies to resume this session. The clock will start now with under 42 minutes left. And I mentioned it yesterday, Davey, that once you clear that museum and head up toward that backstretch, that little switchback along that backstretch, to me, that there's a couple of cool camera shots there. I think that's one of the reasons, and Nick Yeoman alluded to it earlier today in that Indy Next practice session. I think in addition to the shade trees, the ample shade that's offered, that seating area along that backstretch, the way the cars fly through that area is one of the reasons why that area is so popular.
Yeah, no question about it, Mark. That is so fast in that area, and it's just, they don't lift through there. To be fast, you have to be wide open through that and don't lose momentum, get down to those final corners, but it's not as easy as it looks. I mean, they have to do it, but you have to set it up right through there to get wide open, and you have to use up every bit of racetrack, and if you do have to lift, your car goes off and it doesn't handle that well through there, that you're sitting duck for the next corner because they're going to catch you, and that's a good passing zone.
And obviously you need a clean and green session. Not going to happen for Pietro Fittipaldi because, quite frankly, the turnaround time is pretty quick before we go qualifying later today.
Yeah, it sure is. We'll go to Alex right now and talk to Fittipaldi and see what happened.
Well, Pietro Fittipaldi, we were wondering the booth Davey Hamilton was about what happened. We couldn't really tell from some of the replays what did it feel like in the 30 car when you had that off-course excursion.
Yeah, no, we just went in there. We were on scuffed used tires and just kind of warming up the car, and then had an issue with the steering rack. I think the steering rack broke or something, and then the car just went straight.
Well, it looked like it got maybe into the tire barrier a little bit. Did everything feel all right physically, and it's something that maybe you can get back out in this session?
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, luckily we didn't hit anything, and luckily it didn't happen in a much worse corner, because if that would have happened in a high-speed corner, it could have been pretty scary. So.
Pietro Fittipaldi, that's the question answered as to what happened on that 30 car, and they hope to be able to make some repairs and maybe get him out for a few minutes in this session.
Yeah, that explains it all, Alex. Thank you for that, because he just didn't turn. It was really early in the corner, just this very awkward area, and wow, that is pretty crazy. Now, I did see, wildly enough, the tires, when he went through the gravel barrier and it bounced the car up and down, they were turning from right to left, so they were still connected there, but something must have obviously happened, and he wasn't able to turn that car down there. More than likely, I'm going to say they're not going to make this session. I don't think there's enough time. The steering gears in these cars, just to get to them, to have access to get them in, get them out, and make sure the rest of the car's fine, I think it's going to use up this 39 minutes that we have left.
And pretty frustrating, I'm sure, because, again, folks, you know, we get these electrical gremlins, you get these issues and things like that happen, and make no mistake about it, nobody's more frustrated by it than the teams, Davey, because we've all walked through the paddock. You've been a driver in this series, and they go over those cars with a fine-tooth comb before they roll them out here.
You know, and it's just amazing on how good these crews are, and how, you know, in particular, every little thing is in these cars. It just has to be perfect. But then you get into a race and some changes. It's like, now how did we go over everything, and that one thing just happens to, you know, be wrong? But that's the way it is. You know, I mean, things happen. We're all humans. There are mistakes made. And by the way, it's always the crew. There's mechanical issues that parts on these cars may fail, and we've seen before, to where you're just kind of along for the ride and something could fail on the race car that's a purchased piece.
Well, there are those things, though, from time to time that when you get those gremlins and you spend all weekend chasing them, you don't ever get them solved. So at least I think they have their fingers crossed that they have the issue pinpointed and are able to fix it.
You know, we were talking about Foster in the Andretti car in the Indy Next Series, that they have electrical gremlins yesterday. It seems to be going on today again. He got a few laps in, but those are the ones we've seen. Frucci, we know he's had problems with it. Seems to have theirs fixed now as well. But those technical little issues that you can't find, those are the worst.
Issues, as we mentioned, for Pietro Fittipaldi. No such issues for his teammate Christian Lundgaard. He's gone to P1. He turned a lap at 66.6973. Then Rossi, Ferrucci, O'Ward, and Grosjean the top five. McLaughlin, Palou, Herta, Lundqvist, Power through 10th. Ericsson 11th. Dixon 12th. Rosenqvist is 13th. Jack Harvey is 14th. Tom Blomqvist is 15th. Kirkwood is 16th. Rasmussen is 17th. Kiffin Simpson is 18th. And 19th, Stingray Robb. Luca Giotto driving for the first time in this series. The 51 for Dale Coyne is 20th. Pourchaire is 21st, making his second start. 22nd is Armstrong. Canapino 23rd. Ray Hall 24th. Then Fittipaldi, Newgarden, and VK have yet to turn laps. Those last two drivers we mentioned. Walking through the paddock yesterday, Davey, somebody hollered at my name. I don't recall owing anyone any money down here, so I turned around to see who it was. And it was one of the nicest people I've met in my 20-plus years of doing this. Back in the series as a spotter, our good friend Michael Crawford is spotting for Kiffin Simpson and Ganassi.
That's right. Great to see him back at the racetrack. He has a passion for their sport. He's always been involved. He's been on the highs and he's been the lows of motorsports, and it's great to see him back helping out a team, and always has a smile on his face, no matter if it's a high or low. He's always got that smile on his face. Good to see him back.
And his wife has been with Sam Schmidt now for 24 years.
Yeah, I mean, personal assistant to Sam, who from the time of his accident has been there for him and done such a fantastic job. He has a great family. She's a trooper too. That's not an easy job, and Sam obviously is very appreciative of her, and they have a long-term relationship as well.
And he's done it all. I mean, he's been an owner, he's been a driver, he's been a PR rep, and now he's back in the series after teaching at a university in Indianapolis for 13 years. Good to see Michael Crawford. Speaking of Michael, how about Michael Young? An update from him on pit road.
Yeah, our quickest thus far. Christian Lundgaard sits on pit lane. Now the front shock damper cover comes off of that car. They have fans, obviously, on the front brakes, cooling those off. They also have fans for Christian, trying to keep him cool. They're fast, but they're still not happy with the car. They're going to work. They're going to adjust the ride height on the front, maybe change those damper springs as well. So work has begun with a little over 35 minutes remaining in this practice session. Christian Lundgaard sits on pit lane, and he sits P1 on our timing and scoring chart.
Michael mentions those brake fans, and Davey, I think I have seen more brake fires this year than I remember.
It's been pretty interesting. A lot of these brakes take such a beating. We drive in the corner so hard, and this going from high speed to low speed very rapidly, and it's hard on the brakes. I see in the Long Beach going down turn one, you see the brake dust coming out of these wheels. So, but we've seen some failures. Even Rosenquist, the brake bias wasn't exactly like he needed to at the start of the race. Started on the pole, but didn't have get to lead any laps. And I have to say one thing: Lundgaard P1 right now. Not happy with this car, but by the way, he's had the fastest lap of the weekend at 66.697, 124 mile an hour average. Where yesterday it was Joseph Newgarden at a 66.70. Not much quicker, but just slightly quicker. So that, by the way, is on the primary tires, where all these times yesterday were set on the softer compound red sidewall tires.
The IndyCar app powered by NTT Data is available for free to fans. Climb on board with IndyCar cameras, catch up with live timing and scoring and car telemetry info, and listen to the radio broadcast. That's perhaps the best feature. You can download the app today and stay on track with the NTT IndyCar series. I'm glad you brought up that issue. So for the layman who might not know, when Felix Rosenquist said we had issues with the brake bias all weekend long, in layman's terms, explain that.
Yeah, so what happens from the cockpit that we can adjust the front to rear brake bias. For example, on these cars, we usually have a little bit more front brake than we do rear, so it doesn't want to lock the back tires up while we're in gear. But if you have too much front brake, it locks those front tires up, your balance changes. So we have the capabilities, as we see Rasmussen get completely sideways. He saved the car, went in the gravel a little bit, continues on to that Ed Carpenter car. But we can adjust that in the car, but you can't just do it all at once, and you have to kind of play with it. And I think that was just off so slightly for Rosenquist leading that race that Long Beach started on the pole, but it took him about 4 or 5 laps, it seems like, because he got passed pretty rapidly early on because of brake issues.
As the tires wear and that fuel burns off and the car gets lighter, where will you need to make the biggest adjustments on those brake biases here when you use them?
Yeah, and I think the situation, once you get your balance right, even with fuel loads and tire wear, they usually stay.
Hello guys, if you are just joining us, Fittipaldi has had a steering rack came loose, so that's why he is not participating, and they're trying to repair the car. We had a red flag earlier on, but we are all green. Let's head back over to our IndyCar radio commentary team.
Tires up. Sometimes it wants to stall the car. It slows them down so much that it wants to lock the tires up, and that's something that you don't want either. So you have to find that in between space, and it's sometimes hard to find that balance. But once you get it right for the weekend and that particular racetrack, you shouldn't have to mess with them too much.
Alex Wolf on pit road has been watching a couple of pit boxes of the work they've been doing in this session. Alex?
And a couple of the cars that, with about 15 minutes gone in this session, are towards the top. Alexander Rossi for Arrow McLaren is third in this session so far, and they have the front cover off. They've been making some adjustments to the front suspension on that 7 car right in front of them. A few moments ago, Scott McLaughlin came in, and they're making sure that everything's tightened up, giving a once-over to the tire pressures on the Good Ranchers Chevrolet. Also had a mirror on a long pole, checking under, looking at the ride height to see if there's any scuff marks on the under tray of that 3 car for the defending champion here at Barber Motorsports Park. So McLaughlin second, Rossi third in this session, and they're both getting some adjustments made in their Chevrolet-powered cars.
As we mentioned, David Malukas continues to heal from his off-track injury earlier this year. Davey, Teo Porcher, the latest to sub for him, and all in all, a respectable weekend for that talented young driver at Long Beach.
Yeah, I know. It's very tough for Malukas with that wrist injury to watch all these drivers getting in the car he's supposed to be driving. What a frustrating situation. Really feel for him. And we thought that he'd be back at Long Beach, but obviously he wasn't. We thought, well, that for sure he's going to be a Barber, but just don't know the situation where with that hand and wrist right now. But unfortunately, he's not in. But as you said, Pourchaire's done a fantastic job coming just like last second notice.
11th last week at Long Beach.
Yeah, did a great job, and not being on these tracks or in these cars before, it really shows the talent that he has.
What impressed me, Davey, is the smile never left his face all weekend long.
Right. Before he even got in the car, it was a smile. It was a little bit nervous smile, but by the end of the weekend, he was definitely cheering, and what a performance he really had.
You know, Renus VK is taking a liking to this track over the past couple of years. I mean, he's got a podium finish here and a pole here, and boy, I'll tell you, he's off to a pretty good start today, Davey. We're 30 minutes remaining in the session, and Renus VK has gone to P1.
Yeah, and don't forget Graham Rahal. I mean, we continue to talk about Graham where he struggles in qualifying, but right now P2. But VK, we love to see that with that Ed Carpenter team. Seeing his teammate Rasmussen go off course, finds himself in the 12th spot right now, but those cars seem to be fast. VK with that Chevrolet power, Rahal with Honda, Lundgaard Honda, McLaughlin Chevrolet, and Rossi Chevrolet. So we have 3 Chevrolets in the top 5 right now, but that could all change. We've seen that at Long Beach, man. The top of the board was Chevrolets on one side, Hondas on the other, then it kind of flopped when it came race time. So we just want to thank the both engine manufacturers for having such great engines, reliable and competitive.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a tight battle for that championship.
It always
year. At least it seems that way.
You and I have fun talking about it. I mean,
right.
It really is, because I mean we know how special it is to have these manufacturers support our series. We know how important it is to them to win these manufacturer championships and independent races, and we try to give them credit where credit's due. As we see VK get a little bit sideways coming off that turn 9 area down off that hill, and right now we see that was yesterday, actually a replay from yesterday with Canapino, who, by the way, another guy that's been doing a really outstanding job, and finds himself in that 18th position right now in this first practice session of the day.
I had a talk with a couple of crew chiefs and team principals yesterday, and as is often the case, especially when you get in the first quarter of the season, many already with an eye toward the Indianapolis Motor Speedway and the Indy 500. Of course, the Grand Prix is first, but then we start getting ready for the greatest spectacle in racing, and many of these teams already have their Speedway, their IMS card prepared, and we'll talk about that after we go to pit road and check in with Michael Young.
Yeah, of course, 2-time Indianapolis 500 champion Ari Leyendijk down on pit lane. Normally up in race control, Ari, but you're patrolling pit lane. Are you enjoying the sights and sounds? What do you do during a practice session?
Well, I always enjoy the sights and sounds of IndyCar, absolutely. I still love being in the paddock. I tell my wife, and I don't think she always appreciates it, I tell her it's my happy place. Anyway, what I do here in pit lane, I try and get a lay of the land. I want to see where everybody's pitted, so that when it comes time to, look at the race, when the guys come in for a pit stop, and they mention car 18 or car 15, then I know, okay, that guy's pitted over there, that guy's pitted next to that guy, and stuff I need to know before we go racing.
I don't think people appreciate race control. I've walked in race control before. There are so many monitors. There's so much controlled chaos, if you will, going on. Do you look at one particular thing, or does Kyle Novak send you on a task as he sees it? How does it work in race control?
Well, obviously, Max Pappas and I are the stewards, but there's many more eyeballs in race control. So sometimes we're looking at one thing and then somebody else calls out another thing. So it's really a team effort. But yeah, there's a lot going on with 27, 28 cars. A lot of corners, a lot of cars. And our biggest headache is really pit lane. I always tell the drivers, your biggest enemy is pit lane. Take care of the guy next to you, the guy coming out behind you. But yeah, there's a lot to look for.
Yeah, there's a lot going on pit lane. Obviously a tight pit lane here. Let's jump forward a couple of weeks, not to skip past this wonderful weekend, but the cars with this new hybrid system will be a little bit lighter when we come into the month of May. You are the 1-lap and 4-lap track record holder at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Opportunities to perhaps finally break your record?
I've said for years now that I would love to see somebody break my record, because it will be a new chapter in IndyCar. I think my record has been around for long enough. Unfortunately, I don't get paid by being the record holder every year. That would be great. But no, I think that would be a great boost for IndyCar. I mean, the series is so competitive right now. One little thing that can go wrong will put you back. As far as speed goes, it's not always about speed at Indy. It's about having a car that feels really good underneath you that you can race with. But for qualifying, it would be great to see the speeds go up.
We'll let you get back to work. Thank you for the time, as always.
Take care.
That's Arie Luyendyk, of course, two-time Indianapolis 500 champion, and also works in race control in the NTT IndyCar Series.
I know you had a lot of good battles with Arie Luyendyk when you first, you and he raced in the Indy Racing League in the early days.
Yeah, also we loved Arie. Helped me, and we raced competitively and had so much fun and became really good friends. And he's a true friend. I loved, like I say, when you race with Arie Luyendyk, you can count on what he was going to do. He was such a fair racer. Obviously, very, very good racer as well. Now, actually, his son races sprint cars for me. So, doing Arie Luyendyk Jr. is back in racing again, doing some wing pavement sprint car racing. Actually, doing a really good job. He's got a 4th, a 10th, a couple top 10s actually. So, and he's only been in 4 or 5 races. So, doing a good job.
So, back to preparation for the Indianapolis 500. It's not out of the ordinary for teams to already have that car prepared. I know, for example, Leo Castro-Neves is doing the one-off of the Drive for 5, and he ran that car during the test session. Brand new race car for him. Yeah. But about that test session, I mean, we know who was fast Joseph was, but let's face it, because of how very the temperatures could be in Indianapolis in April and May, I've talked to a lot of team principals as well and crew chiefs that'll tell you that you hope that test goes well, but you may show up in May and put the same stuff on the car that you had that test, and for whatever the reason, you're not as fast.
And by the way, very limited track time with the rain. So they got very limited time. A lot of these teams didn't go through the procedures that they wanted. They didn't get all the test notes done that they wanted to do. But you're right. That place just changes so much throughout, from whether it's track temp, ambient temp, wind direction. Wind's a big deal at Indianapolis, as we know, on finding speed. Usually the fast cars are the fastest, but it's just what kind of numbers. Is Arie's record going to get broke? I'm a little different than Arie. I'll be honest with you. He says, I know it's time for it to be broke. It's good for IndyCar. I don't disagree with that whatsoever, but I just like Arie. I just think it's cool that he has a track record, and I was there and I was part of that event, and it's pretty amazing how fast he really went there, and so I kind of hope it stands.
He gave a lot of credit to the late Tim Wardrop for making that car that fast. He was his engineer at the time. He was one of the greats of all time. Probably doesn't get enough credit because he was not a high-profile guy.
No, not at all.
For sure. And, one of the things, I did an event at the IMS Museum with Arie one time, and he said, keep in mind, he said, at the time there was the split, and he said, we did not have the new fresh power plants at our disposal. Yeah. He said, if I would have had the new ones that they were running on the other side, he said, I felt like I could have probably gone a lot faster. He said, it's the only time in my career, if I remember this right, he said that every time I picked up a mile an hour in the corner, I picked up a mile an hour in the straightaway. If I picked up time in the corner, I picked up time in the straight, which is unheard of. Yeah. That's when you know a car's hooked up.
Perfect. And Tim Wardrop, what a good, we miss him. He was so intelligent and very sharp at making these cars go fast. Like you said, part of Arie's wins. But I was fortunate enough to work with him one time, and I was testing the Speedway, and I was there a full day, and the car wasn't balanced that good. Had understeered. We just couldn't get rid of it. The second day we went back, the morning it was still understeered. Tim shows up at about a 90-degree day with his leather jacket on, and comes down, and he says, hey, hop out a minute. We're going to take it to the garage. And I was running for Treadway at the time, and they take it in the garage. About an hour and a half later, he goes, okay, no, go try it now. And I went out there, and I thought, well, he messed this up. It just feels so slow. It just felt like, and I came in, I was 2 mile an hour faster. I've been the whole weekend. He made the car so easy to drive, it felt like I was going slow. And the guy
that's what Arie said. He had gone a lot slower and felt less safe than he felt at 236.
Oh, without a doubt. When they're right, it just is a pleasure to drive. When I was 2 mile an hour, 3 mile an hour slower, and about ready to hit the fence every corner, it wasn't that much fun. But he was amazing, and Arie was very fortunate to have him. He was a definite asset to have on your team.
22 minutes remaining in this session. Rinus VeeKay continues P1. Got some company with Romain Grosjean, Ray Hall, Lundgaard, and McLaughlin the top 5. Then Award, Newgarden, Rossi, Rasmussen, and Ferrucci the top 10. An interesting top 10, and Davey and I will dive into that a little deeper after we check it with Michael Young on pit road.
Well, just outside of that top 5, a couple of the Aero McLaren cars, Pato Award and Alexander Rossi, respectively. We heard Alex Wolff talk about Alexander Rossi. They're doing wholesale changes on the front and rear of that car. So too Pato Award, front damper and rear damper changes. They have that car now buttoned up. We expect to see Pato O'Ward back out onto the circuit. He has used Firestone primaries on. Alexander Rossi not quite there yet. They still are working on that car. Looks like they have everything done, but haven't put those Firestone Firehawks on that car yet. So a couple of the drivers outside that top 5 trying to break through is Alexander Rossi. Said he feels like the turn of his fortunes these last couple of years is ever present, and maybe this is the weekend that Alexander Rossi can find himself back in victory lane.
Yeah, he had a lot of work to do last weekend. Got involved in that early race incident with his teammate, Pato O'Ward, had to come to pit road and worked his tail off along with the race team, Davey, and got himself a little bit farther up in the grid by the time the day was done. And we have a red flag condition because we have Teo Porcher, the rookie, who in the NTT Data car has rolled off the track.
Yeah, as we're talking about that Aero McLaren team and Rossi, but you're right, Rossi didn't have went off course a couple times yesterday, got hit by his teammate, but although that hit by his teammate really kind of helped him. I mean, with the strategy, I think at Long Beach it was pretty good. So, but he's working really hard to find Porcher. It shows a replay right there. Kind of the same thing that Newgarden did yesterday. Just went over that rise of that turn 12, 13 area, and just lost the back of it, spun around. Really, almost a carbon copy of what Newgarden did. He didn't hit anything, which is the good news. They'll go out there and they'll get him fired back off into the pits, and we'll go green again with 20 and a half minutes left.
Alex Wolff has been watching the proceedings in the PNC bank pit of Scott Dixon.
And Scott Dixon, the driver who has finished every position on the podium except the top step here at Barbara Motorsports Park, one of the few tracks on the IndyCar circuit that he has not won at. But the winner on the streets of Long Beach a week ago, just about 16th on the speed charts right now, with 20 minutes plus left in this session. They have the engine cowling off. They're going to be making a change of rear springs to the PNC Bank Honda. They're also going to have some sticker primary black tires on that machine when they get back out onto the track. But Scott Dixon still chasing the balance and the handling on that 9 car in this practice session.
Looks like maybe some issues for the 60 machine of Felix Rosenquist. It appears as though that Felix is out of the race car, and his session may be, for all intents and purposes, over. He is currently 25th quick, turned just 7 laps in this session. Back to pit road, Michael Young.
Yeah, Pietro Fittipaldi is walking back to the paddock area right now. I said the car damaged, and he said, yeah, steering rack's gone. So his session is over, and you could tell he was extremely frustrated. Didn't get a lot of laps in this second practice session, and we get ready to go qualifying. Probably a lot yet to search in that number 30 machine for Rahal Letterman Lanigan Racing.
And he thought when he talked to us earlier, Davey, that it might be the steering rack.
Yeah.
And as you suggest, that's not a quick, easy fix.
No, it's going to take a little bit to fix that. Good news is they'll pull that one completely out, put another one in. There's no power steering in these cars. It's a manual gear, so there's not much guesswork in that. But I think the biggest thing they need to find out is what failed and why did it fail, because as Fittipaldi mentioned to us, hey, if that was a high-speed corner and locked up, that could have been very scary in a dangerous situation. It kind of happened at the perfect spot, but you need to find out what caused that, what happened to that steering gear to cause it to fail.
Interesting top 10, Davey, with VK and Grosjean and Rahal and Lundgaard. You've got McLaughlin and O'Ward slotted in there with Newgarden and Rossi, but then Rasmussen and Ferrucci. Good to see them find some pace in the top 10.
Yeah, how about that? I mean, really good job. I mean, you look at it, you got a Ed Carpenter team. You got, matter of fact, there's about 6 teams in that top 10, which is pretty impressive to have. And with Uncos, with the Grosjean, then you got a couple Rahal cars, then a Penske, McLaren. McLaren's actually has 2 cars in the top 10.
Green flags are back
Ed
out.
Carpenter has 2 cars in the top 10, and then how about that? It's always good to have AJ Foyt's cars find a little speed.
Alex Wolff.
Well, Felix Rosenquist, we hate to see out of the car in this practice session. Still with about 20 minutes left. What was the issue with the 60 car?
We had an engine issue. We tried to do something here on pit lane, but then they said we're going to have to probably swap the engine. So, yeah, unfortunate, but, it is what it is. Sometimes these things happen, and at least we got a few laps in. Felt the car was actually way better than yesterday, so I'm pretty, hopeful going into quali, but it'll be a bit of a, shot from the hip going into it, but, that's what you have to do sometimes.
Well, with that engine issue, was it something that came on suddenly, or was it sort of gradual while you were out there in this session?
It just happened right away here in the front straight, so it was pretty obvious that something was wrong, so I just limped it in, and yeah, here we are.
Well, we'll let you debrief with the crew, and we'll see you for qualifying a little bit later today.
Thank you, man.
Indeed as well. So possibly an engine change could be required for the car of Felix Rosenquist. So we'll update with you with that in qualifying. However, it's looking very, very interesting with Rinus VeeKay at the front of the field, Grosjean in second, Rail in third, as we now run the final 19 minutes of the session. Let's cross back over to IndyCar Radio.
Firestone tires and probably get him sent back out here in 5-6 minutes or so.
You know, Davey, it crosses my mind continuously when we're here. They've done okay for a place that was built for motorcycles.
Yeah, you know, when they first announced Barber Motorsports Park, I go, where is that?
Yeah,
never even heard of it. Yeah. And they go, oh, it's a motorcycle track. I go, well, I never really heard of a motorcycle track specific before, you know, so I thought I didn't know what to think of it. And then when I started doing some research and seeing the elevation change, but then I did notice that it's fairly narrow compared to most of the tracks we go to. Pit lane was narrower, and I thought, how's this going to work? And we just came here for a test, if you recall, just to try it out. And then, man, everybody loved it. We had a lot of fun around here. It seemed like it was going to be very competitive, which all that, and then just the scenery around here, I think, sold a lot of us. And
I mean, George Barber, this was his vision, and then Gene Hallman and Zoom Motorsports and that organization. The staff that they have assembled and the accommodations that they provide to the people who come to this racetrack. I mean, you look across the way, the fan village, it used to be about a quarter of the size that it is right now, and it grows each and every year.
Yeah, it's packed. You can't get anything else in there. It's great.
The camping continues to grow. The number of people at RVs and campers and stuff swells, and more people seem to come on Friday and now Saturday, and not to mention that world-class museum that sits over off in the distance that we can see from our vantage point, the broadcast booth. So just the way they shuttle people around, including us and the media shuttles they make available to us, literally no stone is left unturned and no detail is ignored here at Barber Motorsports.
That is absolutely correct. And back to, you know, this isn't just a racetrack owner and a racetrack operator. They promote this racetrack.
Right.
I mean, it's all over town. It's every weather cast that's mentioned, every sports cast is mentioned. We see cardboard cutouts of IndyCars and businesses around town. I mean, they really step up. They do a great job promoting this event. And by the way, it's working because not only today do we have loads of people here. We're getting here early this morning to get on that hillside to watch these cars perform. They were here yesterday as well, just for the practice session.
Under 17 minutes remaining in this session. This one's scheduled to go until about 20 past the hour. And then we'll want you to rejoin us 1:35 local time, 2:35 Eastern this afternoon as we go qualifying for the Indy Next Series. And then knockout qualifying on the Firestone Fast 6 comes your way at 2:30 local time at 3:30 Eastern. It's an incredible qualifying format for those of you that are new to it. And the Firestone Fast 6 is where all the money and all the marbles are. So
in the UK, you can join us at 8:30 for it.
We'll start at 9:15 local time, 10:15 Eastern for the final 30-minute warm-up session for the NTT IndyCar Series. Then Indy Next will have their race at 10 o'clock local time, 11 o'clock Eastern. And then join us at 12 o'clock local time, 1 o'clock Eastern, as we get ready for the Medical Properties Trust presents Children's of Alabama Indy Grand Prix, powered by AmFirst. So we're excited about that. Everyone continues to look up at Rinus VeeKay. Grosjean, Rahal, Lundgaard, McLaughlin, the top five. Award, Newgarden, Rossi, Rasmussen, and Ferrucci continue to pace the way in the top 10. And for Rinus VeeKay, Davey, for any race team for that matter, I know there's nothing you will do here that will transfer perhaps to the road course at the Speedway because it's so flat. Same thing once you leave the road course and go back to the oval. But let's face it, momentum is a very real thing. And if you have success over these next two races, you're going to feel good about yourself going into preparation for the Indy 500.
Yeah, no question about it, Mark. And I think, way back in the day when I was running and before, it seems like if you did good at Phoenix, you always did good at the Speedway.
Right.
But I think that it was about the momentum more than because the tracks had nothing in common. But it did seem to be that was kind of the case. And I think in today's world, it's just about that. It's about going into the racetrack, into Speedway with a lot of confidence, knowing that your car's good and knowing that you have opportunity to win that race. And I think that that shows, and it's going to be here, the road course and the speedway, and it's coming quick. I mean, we're almost into May right now, and we're looking forward to getting back to the speedway for
Under
sure.
15 minutes remaining in the session. VK, Grosjean, Rahal, Lundgaard, and McLaughlin, the top 5. Michael Young.
Keeping my eye on Alexander Rossi. They're changing the camber in the front end of this car. You can hear the engine running. I was trying to get a word with Brian Barnhart, and Brian, always accommodating, said, give me a second or so. So they're trying to get things buttoned up and get them right for Alexander. This has been a while here on pit lane. His teammate, Pato O'Ward, still comes back. He was actually out for a couple of laps. It looks like they're semi-happy with that car, as Alexander Rossi's car now off the jack. We expect him back out momentarily, but again, some camber changes, and Davey, with a little over 14 minutes remaining, they don't have a lot of time to play with this to figure out if what the changes that they put on the front end of this car will actually work or be beneficial for later on today in qualifying.
Yeah, the good news with that, Michael, is when you do camber changes, caster changes, fairly rapidly, because it's really about getting a little extra grip and heating the tire to make sure that tire is working properly and you're getting max performance out of it. Good news there too. Firestone, they kind of know the parameters where they want that tire as far as it goes with camber and caster. So, but until you put it on the car and you try it, if you get a little too much, you can get some blistering on the inside of the tires. So there's a lot of little tricks to the trade to make it better. But he should have enough time to kind of feel that, get some tire temperatures when this run's done, just get some driver input to see if the car had a little more grip, and go from there.
With all of the changes that occurred in terms of the driver roster in the offseason, one of those constants was the fact that Renus VK stayed with Ed Carpenter, and they've pretty much grown together, haven't they?
Yeah. So I talked to Ed yesterday about that. I go, where's VK at on his contract? And he goes, it's really up. I mean, I'm out of options, and it's kind of up to him. I go, well, he seems to be a very loyal guy. You seem to have a good relationship. You guys, do well together. And he goes, yeah, I feel good. I think he for sure wants Renus back. I think Renus is pretty happy there. They seem to get better and better. They started off really good. They had a little bit of a dry spell. They fell off a pace a little bit, but it seems right now that Ed Carpenter Racing team seems to really kind of be rising back to the top. And VK's hungry. He wants to win. He wants to get back up towards the front. And right now he's doing just that.
How about an update from Alex Wolff on pit road?
Well, Romain Grosjean, second quick in this session, having a great run in his third points race for Juncos Hollinger Racing, and they are not resting on their laurels as they are making a change on the rear suspension. Looks like the right rear spring, they're just finishing a change on that. They also did one to the left side. They sit the old ones down, new ones being fastened on, and Grosjean going to head back out. When he ran for Andretti Global a year ago, was the pole sitter here at Barber, and he's going to try to do it again here later today with his new team.
Marcus Armstrong currently 10th quick. We just saw him attacking some curbing that upset the balance of the race car a bit.
It's funny, when you think alike, Mark. I was just looking at him and just seeing, we haven't talked about him much even this year, but he is so strong. I mean, that he could win any of these races. He's the second year with the team. He has confidence. He obviously has a lot of talent. He finds himself. He's in the quiet area for us. We seem to be like, we talk about who's way up front, and we seem to talk about surprisingly who may be in the back that shouldn't be. But he's in that 8th, 9th, 10th area all the time, just ready to strike. His times are good. He's in that 10th position right now. I think this is a kid that back to that Ganassi style or Dixon style that just could be a long-term guy, just learning what he needs to do, learning the racecraft of these cars, but doesn't seem to put a wheel wrong. It just seems to be plugging away and learning and gaining speed every time he's on track.
Admittedly, it was a bit of surprise when it was announced that Chip Ganassi was adding Kiffin Simpson to his stable, if you just look at the Indy Next results alone. Yeah. But I will say this, through the first few races, there's little doubt that Kiffin Simpson, I think, is I got to believe Chip, Michael, and that whole organization are happy with him because he continues to get better and better. He's learning from some awfully talented teammates for sure, and I don't really see anybody necessarily having an issue with Kiffin Simpson, and he's brought the car home to some respectable finishes in the first couple of races.
And I think the situation there is we all see him in Indy Next, and he didn't really have a stellar year. He was there, but not super competitive, not towards the front. And then thinking, okay, well, he needs to be there another year. Seems like he has some talent, but it just hasn't came yet. Just like more lap time, then all of a sudden we find out that the Chip hires him. I thought, wow, what did they see in him? And obviously, he has an eye for talent, and Simpson seems to be more adapted to the Indy car than the Indy Next car, in all honesty. And we've seen that before, where somebody doesn't really fit in one style of a car, but they get another one. They're really, really good, and it seems to be that's the situation.
I don't want to discredit the Indy Next Championship.
No,
not
at all.
It is something to be proud of, and it's very, very tough to win. But if we look up and down the grid, we see a lot of talented drivers who didn't win a championship in that series who are now in the NTT IndyCar series.
That's exactly right. I mean, it doesn't mean that's not a do-all. I mean, it is hard to win. It's very competitive, as you said. But drivers mature. They get better. It depends on what team you're with. There's so many elements to go into being good in these cars and maybe not being so good in the car that you were in the past. And I think Simpson's with a really good team. I think he puts a lot of pressure on himself to be good. He's staying out of trouble. That's one thing, too. When you find yourself slower than your teammates, you got to always remember, hey, it's my first year. I just got to continue to learn. I don't want to go over that edge. You get, the telemetry's there. He can go into a debrief and say, okay, well, Scott's faster than me here. Pelot's faster than me here. But he doesn't just go out and try to do it unsafely or, really without the experience to do that.
9 minutes remaining in this practice session before we go qualifying a little bit later on today. An update from Alex Wolf.
And the 2022 Barber Pole Sitter Rinus VeeKay just headed back out onto the track, and where for Roman Grosjean, it was a spring change at the rear of the car. For Rinus VeeKay, they just buttoned up before he headed out the front cover. They made a front spring change on the 21 car. Check the ride height on that machine, and Rinus VeeKay going to try to better things in this session time-wise with 8.5 minutes remaining.
So from the novice's perspective, Davey, when he talks about a spring change, there's obviously some communication that's been going on between the drivers and the guy on the pit box, what he's feeling and how it feels that necessitates that change.
Yeah, and on the rear spring change normally, if you're going to go a little bit softer per se on that, that means that will add a little bit of grip to the back of that car, or if you're going stiffer, it helps turn the car a little bit better. It helps the direction a little bit better. So don't know which way they went, but that's kind of the area you go to on these courses, and that's the direction you go. And VeeKay right now, Mark, back to how competitive this series is. He's at a 106.54. Well, if you go to a 107.5, you're going to go all the way down to 22nd place, who is Simpson that we just talked about. That's how close. We almost have, there's only 5 cars on this grid that aren't within a second of the fast time.
Yeah, we go 1st through 13th in the 66 range, and then as you mentioned, from Herta is the one at 67, and then you go all the way back to pretty much the rear. We won't include Fittipaldi, obviously.
Right.
He had some steering issues. Didn't get a chance to turn a lap. He turned 1 lap, in fact. And Felix Rosenqvist is another one that if you look at timing and scoring with the start that Felix has gotten off to, you got to be thinking, boy, what's wrong with Felix Rosenqvist? Well, again, we talked to him just a few moments ago. Issue with that power plant. They rolled it back to the paddock. They're going to make some wholesale changes on that car, and they should have Felix ready to go for qualifying. And every reason to believe the setup that they have on that car is going to be because they've got everything to go on from yesterday.
Yeah, he was very confident, and he's a guy. He's obviously a great qualifier, and to get the job done, he's confident with that team. So, and you kind of look at the lap completed here. It tells you who's having good days and who's having bad. And you got Fittipaldi with 1 lap, and you got Rosenqvist, and then he's in 27th, and then 25th place is Rosenqvist with 7 laps. Tells you that they have issues with their cars. Most everybody else is in that, I think there's that one down to 14 is one of the lowest ones, but 20 laps, 22 laps, 21 laps. So those are the cars that are having a good time today.
Felix was 17th in the practice session yesterday, Davey, so that begs the question, maybe some gremlins started to pop up then.
Yeah, it could be. I'm not sure exactly what he had as we see Simpson going around turns 2, going up that hill into 3 right now. Had a little issue getting down into turn 1, slid off the course, got it slowed down. Did not cause the yellow, but made a small mistake. Ooh, almost got it out the way. Ooh, what a ride he had. He had a ride.
Little Dukes of Hazzard action.
Yeah, he went off the asphalt, was pretty smooth, kind of got sideways and straightened out, sideways again. But when he hit the grass, it shot the car straight there, and it came down nose first and used like a snowplow on the wings through that grass right there. And by the way, pretty impressive how strong those wings are, because it hit hard and dug up a lot of grass right there. But they're going to have to go back and inspect that front end.
I think that's something they might take a look at some point, and where you transition from the asphalt back to the grass, maybe shave that off a little bit, make that a bit more level?
One or two things. You shave the grass down, or that's right, not make it a jump, make it a little more even to where you just drop off into the grass, not get launched into the grass. And I think, it's hard to do. There's so many off areas in this, and they've done such a great job with the track and the grass and how it looks, but that is a situation where you build a racetrack. We've seen that at Mid-Ohio. Remember late Justin Wilson hit a security road. Oh, look at the right side of that car.
Yeah.
It's down on the ground.
Yep.
I mean, dragging on the ground. So big problems in that Simpson car. But he hit the crossroad, emergency road, got him in there just like that. But when it came down, actually got a fracture per vertebrae, and compressed his spine. And so those are very dangerous. They fixed that at Mid-Ohio, by the way. They did do the work that it took. And when you slide from the grass across the asphalt onto the grass, it's more of a smooth transition.
If you want more IndyCar Radio, you can check out our website for links to our podcast, talent bios, broadcast schedules, and more. Go to IndyCarRadio.com. Michael Young.
It's just interesting, and I know we gush about this place each and every time we come here, but I'm standing on pit lane observing Alexander Rossi's progress, and he's not been able to crack the top 10 since they made that camber adjustment. But as I watch him come out of the final turn, watch him come all the way down this front straightaway, you see the tops of the cars. The walls are low enough that you can see the tops of the cars, and I would wait a second after he comes out of the Alabama roller coaster. You can see his car make his way down to Charlotte's Web and out of those turns, and I just started to observe a little more. It's about 400 yards away, but the back straightaway, you can actually follow a car, and I think that's what's so brilliant about this place and all the fans on the back straightaway. You can see 4 layers of race course and actually keep track of your driver, and you think this track is 2.38 miles. There's no way you can see that much, but it's that great the way that George Barber laid this course out. You can see so much of it. It lends itself to be one of the fan favorites, and again, add the beauty to it, one of the best on our schedule.
Well, in terms of a quote-unquote natural terrain road course from our perspective, the one, Davey, I think that's kind of like this, not like it in any way in terms of its layout, but it gives us, a view, which is rare for a natural terrain course, of a pretty good chunk of the racetrack. The only one that comes to mind close to this from our perspective would be Sonoma. Yeah,
I was going to say Sonoma. It really is, because it's up on a hill and everything is kind of elevated, and we look up a hill or we're looking down a hill, and we can see a majority of that racetrack is right. And it doesn't have the green grass there, though. There's a lot of dirt.
That's for sure.
When you go out, the beauty's not there, but it is a great place to watch a race for sure.
So VK, Grosjean, McLaughlin, Rahal, and Lundgaard, the top 5, and we've got it off. It looks like the car of Santino Ferrucci has gotten off course.
Yeah, he went way off course. He was way out there. Now, I don't know if he crossed over the gravel trap, got into the grass, and made the long tour around so he didn't have to go back to the gravel. Doesn't look like it hurt his car at all. He's back up to speed right now, going down that back straightaway.
Been a bit of a revolving door over the past few years at that race team in terms of drivers. Do they feel like they found the guy they want to work with for a while now?
Yeah, talking to Larry, they really have a good relationship with Santino, and they want to continue to grow that relationship. And, over there, it is about fun. Nothing. He got off very easily, didn't go through any gravel or anything. And but I think they feel like they want him in that car. They believe in him. He believes in the team, and I think that could be a staple point for somebody that stays in that team for long term.
Yeah, that's a big key, is when you have that continuity in it.
Yeah, well, you have to have it right now. I mean, going from team to team or changing even your crew guys, it is very difficult because, internally what we don't see and the fans don't see, if there's different crew guys, they're trying to get used to what they're supposed to do. It's difficult to get that continuity and get that, you have to have relationships with these guys, and you have to have faith in each other and be able to be on a friendship basis and know your engineer especially, they need to know what you're thinking before you even tell them. And so once you find that combination, obviously as we're watching Scott Dixon, we know he has that over at Ganassi, and we know a lot of these teams have that situation. And I think Foyt's still trying to find that and making sure that they have the best car week in, week out for Ferrucci.
We've gone through the history of this race. We've had, guys that have won multiple races, Ryan Hunter-Reay, Joseph Newgarden, and others. And while maybe not multiple wins with a minute to go in the session, there are some drivers who are consistently good here, and one of them, Davey, is currently P2. I mean, Romain Grosjean may have had the car to beat last year, but still ended up runner-up. But his 2 previous starts, both were top 10 starts and top 10 finishes.
Yeah, and how about that race last year for the pass he made to get in the lead, and it was pretty amazing coming off the final corner down this front straightaway. You just don't see passing there. He was on it, but then I think you had to go into fuel savings mode, and just kind of was a sitting duck at that point. Still finished well, but took a chance to win. But But you're right. This track is, as I continue to say, it is high commitment. When I mean high commitment, every corner is basically blind that we talked about. There's elevation changes. You have to charge this track. It's very, very fast. You have to charge it to be fast and put yourself at a lot of risk. That's why we see so many offs of going to the grass and the gravel. It's just not easy. It's not
Checkered
easy
flag
to do
is out.
whatsoever.
A lot of guys in the grid right now as the checkered flag flies that have had pole positions here, and a lot of those with really good finishes here. And as is always the case, qualifying is at a premium in this series, and it is just so very, very close. And again, Davey, the times continue in terms of the separation. I mean, it is just incredibly close throughout this field.
Yeah, it is, and we love it. And I think it's going to end up being 22 cars, with Simpson being 22nd within that 1 second time frame. And that, well, actually, VK, he did go out and he bumped it just a little. No, I take that back. He's the same. So it is 22 cars within that 1 second time frame. So
Rinus VK was the fastest this session, and he turned a lap at 66.5463. Grosjean was second quick, then McLaughlin and Rahal, then Lundgaard, then Award, Power, Palou, and Newgarden. Armstrong was 10th quick, Rossi 11th, Dixon 12th, Canapino 13th, 14th Herta, 15th Rasmussen, 16th Ferrucci, 17th Ericsson, 18th Kirkwood, 19th Blomqvist, Lundqvist 20th quick. Harvey was 21st quick, then Kiffin Simpson, then Portier. Giotto was 24th quick. Rosenquist 25th, but again, they think a power plant issue maybe with that car, and he only turned 7 laps, went back to the paddock, and they're making what they hope will be the necessary repairs to that car to get him ready for qualifying a little bit later on this afternoon. Stingray Robb was 26th quick, and Pietro Fittipaldi turned just 1 lap and had an issue with that steering gear, and they're working on that as we speak and hope to get him ready for qualifying a little bit later on this afternoon. Who do you like for qualifying, Davey?
Well, I tell you, it's going to be interesting. I think I'm going to go with Grosjean. I think that he has, as we talked about, he's second quick here. He's been in the top 5. I thought it's either going to be Lundgaard or Grosjean. That's who I'm going to kind of some long shots, but I think have a good opportunity.
Yeah, going to be interesting to see if anybody that's inside of the top 15 can jump up there and get into that fast 6 and maybe steal a pole. Power wouldn't be a surprise. Pato Award wouldn't be a surprise. Alex Palou, certainly Joseph Newgarden, all are candidates to do that.
Yeah, without a doubt. So you look back, how about Kirkwood? Just hasn't had a great weekend. Ericsson 17th, Kirkwood 18th. We could see them in there. We see Rasmussen having some good times. But Dixon right now, our last week's winner, finds himself in that 12th spot, and that's where you want to be right off the bat. You want to be in the fast 12.
Don't forget, a little bit later on this afternoon, 1:35 local time, 2:35 Eastern, we'll have complete coverage of Indy Next qualifying, and we'll tell you more about NTT IndyCar Series qualifying after we hear from the guy who set P1 in this session, Alex Wolf.
Well, Rinus VK 14th yesterday, top of the charts today. What did you guys find overnight that put you up top here in the session?
Oh, we didn't really find crazy stuff. We changed the car and just little changes, but we really did not get a lap in on the Reds yesterday. So we knew we were strong, just not black and white. But yeah, we were fast. I'm really happy with the car, and the 21 Carpenter Racing crew really made some good changes. So yeah, it's been good teamwork so far, and Chevy Power's been pretty great too with top 3 in this session.
Made a spring adjustment with about 10 minutes left. Did it make it a better, worse, or the same?
It's hard to get reads with the tires dropping off. Got into 17 laps on tires, so we have to look back on the data and see what it all does. But I think I have a sneeze coming. But no, it's really it gives me a good feeling, good confidence. Just not just me, but also the whole crew that were really fast in qualifying or in practice here before qualifying.
Well, we'll let you debrief with the crew, figure out what you're going to do with the Reds, and see if you can get another pole here at Barber after you got one 2 years ago.
Thank you very much to IndyCar Radio for taking us through that session and also confirming the order for you. I'll scroll back up to the top for you guys to take a look at right at the end. But Rinus VK, fastest in this session. Is he going to be able to do the same thing in qualifying? You're going to have to join us and find out at 8:30 here in the UK. Make sure you join us then to see whether Rinus VK can take pole or will it be someone else. Goodbye.